Our annual coaches rankings right here at the Voice of College Football. Best discussion, debate, and analysis thanks to your participation. Leave those comments and questions down below. Leave us your rankings as well. We deliver a little bit later this off season, but hopefully the wait will be worth it. We're running down no longer the Power 5, now the Power 4 coaches. And here we go. So as we get started, keep in mind that we are ranking the coaches based on right now. This is not a legacy award. This is not looking back 5, 10, 15 years. Therefore, a coach could have had a great run back 5 or 10 years ago, i.e. a Jimbo Fisher, Florida State, early at Texas A&M, who obviously is not coaching this season in 2024, but who would have taken a knock in recent seasons at College Station because of not meeting expectations. So it's about right now. But we also have to take into consideration just because a coach may have had a bad season, a down year, Dave Clawson at Wake Forest, we're not going to completely rank him based on just one bad season. So it's a combination of both, but the recency is more important for us. And also keep in consideration that we've got first-time head coaches. Now, they're going to be all ranked at the bottom, right? Mostly, yes, that totally makes sense. However, let's keep in mind that there are coaches that are not meeting expectations right now that have a 1, 2, 3 year track record. Well, I'm considering the guys that are just entering their first time stint as a head coach as neutral. They are neutral. They've not done anything positive or negative. They've done nothing. They have simply been named to the position. So I'm giving them a neutral rating. Therefore, there could be some coaches who have track records that I'm going to rank below them because what they've done is largely negative. And also keep in mind that I've got to distinguish between first-year head coaches. Well, as head coaches, they're all even. But I'm making a bit of a projection based on their success as a position coach or coordinator and my projection in terms of the impression that they have given at this point as head coaches going forward. So we start at number 69, and of course, we've got Trent Bray at Oregon State taking over for the popular, for good reason, did a great job, remarkable job at Oregon State. Jonathan Smith moves on to Michigan State. Trent Bray has been at Oregon State, his alma mater, both as a graduate assistant and most recently on the defensive side of the football in 2018 through 2023. Now, as a player, outstanding, one of the great legacy players at Oregon State as coach and player, 6th leading tackler in the history of the school, bowl game MVP, all Pac-12. All right, on the defensive side of the football, one of the big reasons why Jonathan Smith succeeded, 10-3 2 years ago, 9-4 this past season, is because of Trent Bray. We'll give him a fresh start, of course. It's his program now. He's in a bit of a tough position, of course, as Oregon State's been kicked out of the Pac-12, which no longer exists. They find a home temporarily as an quasi-independent, quasi-Mountain West member. And so Trent Bray's going to have an easier schedule than he would have had to face in the Pac-12, and we've got him at number 69. Sometimes it takes other people's decisions to give others an opportunity. Let's look at UCLA. Chip Kelly said, current college football landscape, I've had it. NIL, transfer portal, I want to just coach football and scheme it up. So he goes to Ohio State as offensive coordinator. The opportunity now for Deshaun Foster to make his mark. He's a legacy at UCLA, much like we talked about with Trent Bray at Oregon State. Deshaun Foster went to the NFL, gained almost 5,000 yards as a pass receiver and rusher with the Carolina Panthers. Also, experience as an NFL assistant coach. Great player at UCLA. Has the all-time single-game rushing record there, an All-American, and a 2-time All-Pac-12 selection. Now he gets his shot at UCLA after 7 years as the running backs coach. Deshaun Foster, number 68 in our coaches' rankings. The nation probably knows less about Fran Brown than any major college football coach right now, but Dino Babers could not get it done at Syracuse. He was given a ton of time, had the one big season in 2018 at 10-3. Let's see if Fran Brown can bring some youthful energy and a new attitude and approach to the Cuse. All right, Fran Brown has been a position coach since 2013 at places like Temple, Rutgers, Baylor, and most notably and recently at Georgia. This set him up for this job working for Kirby Smart. Hopefully he learned something. He proved to be one of the top recruiters in college football, but was that because of the Georgia program? We shall see. Number 67 on our list, Fran Brown, Syracuse. Hopefully this statement from SEC Media Days a couple summers ago will not live in infamy for one Clark Lee of Vanderbilt, who said, "We will build the greatest program in college football." I don't believe that he truly meant the greatest football on the field product, but he was talking about the complete collegiate experience for Vanderbilt football. But that was coming off two big November wins the previous season against Florida and Kentucky. There was some life at Vandy, but this past season was rough. 0-8 in the conference, just 2-10 with a couple of gimmies, obviously, in non-conference play. Clark Lee, 9-27 at Vanderbilt, 2-22 with those two magical wins in November of 2022 at Vandy. It's not the greatest program in college football right now. Of course, we know what the challenge is, and it only gets tougher because of the entries of Oklahoma and Texas into the SEC. Our number 66 coach was number 64 on our list, but after 0-8 in the conference and really not being competitive top to bottom, Clark Lee, Vandy. We probably shouldn't be too hard on Troy Taylor of Stanford. Shoot, David Shaw could go 3-9 there multiple times. Troy Taylor comes in and pretty much does the same thing, and even gave college football fans one of the most exciting nights of the season with that remarkable comeback win in Boulder against Coach Prime and Colorado. At number 65 on our list, Troy Taylor comes in from Sacramento State. Again, just 3-9 for Stanford, and now they move all the way out to the ACC, so just an interesting dynamic there. Troy Taylor did a remarkable job at Sacramento State, going 30-8 with 3 playoff appearances, but he couldn't beat his old team last year. But he did again beat Deion Sanders in Colorado. David Shaw did nothing with this program in recent years and left it in pretty bad shape for Troy Taylor. So, reclamation project in Palo Alto for our number 65 coach, Troy Taylor, Stanford. I'm intrigued by the situation in Charlottesville at Virginia. Tony Elliott comes in after all those years coaching under Dabo Swinney. Did he learn anything about running a big-time college football program? It certainly didn't appear so early in the 2022 season, but what happened late in that season? Tragedy hit the program. He had to deal with that. None of us wanted to see that. Obviously, it's a huge disaster for those friends, those families of those fine student athletes. But for Tony Elliott, in the long run, maybe it's better for himself to mature as a coach, a leader, a man, a leader of young men. Tony Elliott did a remarkable job in leading the team throughout that offseason when football was thrown on the back burner, was thrown out the window, out the door to deal with the health, the mental health, emotional health of his football team. So consider what Virginia did this past season. The record was not pretty. It was 3-9, but look a little deeper. How about that remarkable comeback win as a 24-point underdog against North Carolina, a much more talented team. They took Louisville down to the wire. They should have won that game on the road on a Friday night against Louisville. They were largely competitive. Yes, they had a few downers. Virginia Tech just blew them away. Couple blowouts there, but they generally competed against much better football teams. Tony Elliott, 3-9 last year, only 6-16, 2 years at Virginia. Yes, he needs to start winning those games, but considering what he has faced and his football team, nice job by Tony Elliott. Actually, despite the 3-9, goes from number 69 to 64 on our list. Just 1 year in the books for Ryan Walters at Purdue. A difficult place to win in the Big Ten. Of course, Jeff Brom did a remarkable job at that, set him up to leave for his alma mater, where he instantly went to an ACC championship game the year after he led Purdue to the Big Ten championship game. Jeff Brom did it with offense, mostly. Ryan Walters trying to do it with defense. Of course, he led the Illini to the #1 ranked defense in college football his final year as DC with Brett Bielema. Much like some of these other coaches we've mentioned, Elliott with Dabo Sweeney, did Ryan Walters learn something from Brett Bielema? 4-8 his first season. Really, the team played a little bit better than that, but too many turnovers at the quarterback position and elsewhere. Different strengths. Suddenly he's turning over the roster, turning over the philosophy, run heavy, defense-minded team, toughness, as opposed to what Jeff Brom preached. And number 63 on our list, Ryan Walters. Boiler up. Early in the 2023 season, Arizona State looked like the worst team in the Power 5. Worse than dozens of Group of 5 teams. They lost to Fresno State 29-0. When do we see shutouts in college football these days? It's an offensive game. And Kenny Dillingham coming in from Oregon, an offensive coach. And one of the big reasons why he got a Power 5 head coaching gig as the youngest in the country was because of his offensive prowess. But Arizona State, a laughingstock in September, got slowly better, and despite just the 3-9 finish, a much better football team. Now it's going to be extremely important for Kenny Dillingham to do something with Jaden Rashada, to show development. This is his prized pupil, and this is the guy that is going to be the poster child for the program going forward. Kenny Dillingham showing good things at Arizona State, good recruiting, and of course, again, the development of Jaden Rashada at quarterback, number 62 on our list, up from 66 in 2023. Kenny Dillingham, ASU. Justin Wilcox would not have a job with this record and this results performance over his 7 years at Cal if he had 80% of the other jobs across the country. But at Cal, he keeps his job. Tremendous defensive mind, defensive game planner, developer of talent on that side of the football at places like Wisconsin, Tennessee, USC. And we've got to understand he's getting little support at Cal from the administration in terms of resources. And they did go 6-7 this past year, made it to a bowl game. But man, that Pac-12 record, and we're talking about playing some of the worst teams in the country when the Pac-12 was less than it was the last 2 years. Justin Wilcox, 21-37 against conference competition, now takes his act to the other coast, taking on ACC teams. At number 61 on our list, we see he was 63 last year, Justin Wilcox, Cal. I feel bad for Zach Arnett. He did a fine job as the defensive coordinator for Mike Leach, God rest his soul, at Mississippi State. Of course, Leach tragically passed away between the final game of the regular season in 2022 and the bowl game against Illinois. Zach Arnett steps in, wins the bowl game, gets off to a rough start at Mississippi State, is allowed to coach just 10 games, only gets 10 games of a shot. Now it's handed off to former Ole Miss and Oklahoma offensive coordinator Jeff Lebby. Has never been a head coach. Great offensive mind. Excellent production. Look at both at Ole Miss and Oklahoma, known for the passing game, but check out the rushing numbers for both those schools under Jeff Lebby. Remarkable. Great game planner. He's talking big at Mississippi State, and this is one of those instances where we are raising him higher than some coaches who have nominal experience at the Power 5 level. At number 60 on our coaching list for 2024, Jeff Lebby, Hail State. Jeff Collins' tenure at Georgia Tech was a mess. Brent Key picked up the pieces and has done a fine job. So he instantly, mid-season, took over for Jeff Collins 2 years ago and started to instantly be competitive. This Georgia Tech team that had a dismal, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but basically winning 15 or 20% of their ACC games under Jeff Collins, suddenly, boom, kicks it into gear and is instantly competitive and winning games against decent teams, bowl teams in the ACC. They finished that year. They go 7-6 this past season, which seems like a remarkable accomplishment. Let's keep in mind they won the bowl game against UCF. They were down by 2 scores, had a nice comeback, outscored the Knights 30-3 to put that game away. But also consider that if Mario Cristobal and Miami kneel down, that Georgia Tech goes 5-7. They never reach a bowl game, so they can't win a bowl game. They're 5-7 right now. So just keep that in mind. doing a nice job, but still there's much work to be done in Atlanta. Haynes King back at quarterback, so they've got a shot to do something here in 2024. At number 59 on our list, up from 61, Brent Key, Ramblin' Wreck. I ask one question concerning Scott Satterfield and Cincinnati football. Would Luke Fickell have gone 3-9? I know they lost a ton of NFL talent, and it was going to be cycling down for Cincinnati, but Luke Fickell, what a job he did there with the Bearcats. I can't see them going 3-9, even stepping up in class to the Big 12. Scott Satterfield comes in from Louisville, and it was ugly, ugly, ugly. He's 16-21 the last 3 years, as you see right there, with the 1 year at Cincinnati. Did a decent job at Louisville. They were barely over 500 there. Of course, he got his shot in the big time at Louisville for doing a great job at App State. He was in that line of coaches, Eli Drinkwitz being the most recent to step up from App State into a big-time job, but much more expected of Scott Satterfield at Louisville. Didn't pull through there, and now at Cincinnati, he is looking up at the rest of the Big 12. At number 58 on our list is Scott Satterfield, UC. Justin Fuente practically wrecked the Virginia Tech football program. Frank Beamer, of course, built the legacy into a top 10 level program for much of his tenure. Now, it wasn't that good when Frank Beamer retired. However, Justin Fuente went to an ACC championship game, was 20-8 his first 2 seasons, and then just worse and worse and worse in the recruiting classes. Deplorable. He hands that mess over to Brent Pry, and certainly the Hokies roster at the time that Brent Pry inherited it, coming in from his defensive coordinator position at Penn State, was the worst Virginia Tech roster since the late 1980s. Brent Pry, first season, rough, as Virginia Tech has made it almost a tradition now in recent years of losing to a low-level group of 5 team, Old Dominion being the most recent. So an embarrassing first season. However, Kyron Drones at quarterback, being developed into a dual-threat guy who only turned it over 3 times through the air last year. Credit Brent Pry in formulating the offensive approach. He's not the coordinator, but in terms of forming this program and what it's going to be all about, he's getting back to Beamer ball. And this Virginia Tech team capped off a fine, competitive 2023 season with a bowl win against Tulane to finish at 7-6. Maybe Brent Pry's got a shot in Blacksburg. Our number 57 coach, up from 68, Brent Pry, Hokies. Jake Dickard holding steady at number 56 in our rankings for 2024. What a job he did in 2020, taking over at Washington State in the midst of the Nick Rolovich controversy as he was jettisoned out, and half the coaching staff. And Jake Dickard was a first-year defensive coordinator. It wasn't like he was a 10-year DC who really knew the structure, the campus, the system, everything involved. But he stepped in, and Washington State was a good football team that year. And then he parlayed that with Cam Ward into 7 wins and a bowl appearance. But this past season, 2-7 in the Pac-12. And Washington State got off to a strong start. They beat Wisconsin. They beat Oregon State. So they had 2 nice wins early, and they just free fell from there. Again, a couple strong seasons, but Jake Dickard just let this team fall apart down the stretch this past season to go 2-7 in the Pac-12. Number 56 on our list, and really a precarious 2024 season coming up with this Mountain West schedule. And we would expect Washington State should be able to clean up against Mountain West competition, right? At number 56, Jake Dickard, Wazoo. If a coach repeatedly brings in top 10 recruiting classes, he's going to keep his job, right? He has to. Maybe not necessarily in Gainesville. Billy Napier comes in from Louisiana, where he won all over the place. His record in his career, despite these 2 down years at Florida, 51-26. Now, this past season, looking at the recruiting, He was gunning for a top 3 to 4 class in the country. However, he let some of those guys slip away. They were coming off 5 and 7, so that's not going to hold typically that kind of class, and it didn't for Billy Napier. Still finished with a fine recruiting class at somewhere in the 10 to 12 range. Well, we're looking at something similar. He's off to a hot start in recruiting, but what is going to happen? This is my big question. If Florida turns in the kind of season we all anticipate, do they have talent? Yes, but nowhere near the talent of the teams that they are facing week after week and the coaching staffs they are facing. Look at their final 5 games. It's one of the most brutal stretches in the history of college football. If this team goes 5 and 7, they might have one of the 25 best teams in the country. It's going to be very difficult for him to keep his job if they're strictly looking at record and saying, does anyone keep their job at Florida with 3 consecutive losing seasons? However, look at the recruiting classes and look at the schedule he faced. Strange times at Florida. One of the more difficult rankings to determine is right here with Brent Brennan coming in from San Jose State to Arizona. Did a nice job at San Jose State. The overall record, not good at 34 and 48 in 7 years, but they were a deplorable team when he got there. He didn't turn it around right away. It took a long, long time. And even at the finish line, just 7 and 6. So it was slow progress and it was marginal progress. Now he takes over Arizona. Of course, they go 10 and 3 under Jed Fish. He hightails it to Washington. So Brent Brennan comes in. They're moving to the Big 12. The one indicator I like here is that he kept his quarterback, Noah Fafita, and most of the transfer portal additions, the guys that were in the transfer portal looking to leave, when somebody enters the portal, they leave 95% of the time, and Brent Brennan was able to stabilize the situation at Arizona. So let's wait and see on the Brent Brennan era in Tucson. Our number 54 coach for 2024, Brent Brennan. Bear down. After 2 losing seasons and a 3-score loss at Penn State, how many thought Neil Brown would still be coaching in Morgantown right now? Well, 9 wins in 12 games, got the job done. So it's still wait and see for Neil Brown, but turns in the one nice season in a bowl victory against North Carolina. Of course, had the tremendous run at Troy, set him up for the elevation to West Virginia, but he has not won at a program that is used to winning. I think it's one of the most underrated programs in college football. When you look at legacy, both all time, especially going back to Don Nehlen here the last 50 years, and certainly recently, this is a program that's used to finishing in the top 15 to 25 in the country, and sometimes better than that, and participating in big-time bowl games. And Neil Brown's done nothing close to that. Although, again, 9 and 4, a good indication. He's got his quarterback and most of his core production coming back for 2024. Big season for West Virginia and Neil Brown, our number 53 coach, up from 58. Purdue sucks. Okay. Ohio State and Michigan suck. Well, that's what Curt Cignetti says. Fighting words. He's used to winning. Now he's got to get everybody in Bloomington, and especially those players, used to winning. What a remarkable job Cignetti did at James Madison. Consider they were not FBS status. So he led that transition from a pure football standpoint. Of course, the administration from a standpoint of that level of transition, the legalities and so forth, but moving that football program into the FBS and instantly not just succeeding, not just getting to bowl play, but 11 and 1 last season, 52 and 9 at James Madison. And Curt Cignetti, of course, not being respectful and mild in entering Bloomington. He wants to take the Big Ten by storm. Well, he has with his mouth. Will he do so with his recruiting and leadership and on-field production? At number 52 on our list, Curt Cignetti, IU. Hopefully your recent stock purchases are not reflecting the same downward trajectory of Baylor football under Dave Aranda. We had Dave Aranda at number 24 on our list. I gave him a bit of a pass considering he came in the COVID year. Then, boom, he elevates to a Big 12 championship and a Sugar Bowl appearance. 12-2 that year. Great job by Baylor and by Dave Aranda. Then, 6-7. That's not horrible. They went 6-6, and then they played in 15-degree weather in the Frisco Bowl. They're not used to doing that. They lose to Air Force. Okay. But now 3-9 this past season, and largely not competitive in these games. And this has been a roller coaster program for years and years and years, so this is nothing new. But they were awful on defense, and Dave Aranda is a defensive stud. He's a guru. This is what got him his job. And now he is fighting for his job, and many are surprised he still has it. 23-25 in 4 years in Waco. Our number 51 coach, the Big 12 champion from 2 years ago, Dave Aranda, Baylor.